Hey guys, welcome back to my workbench and World of Modeling. Dan here as always, and it is the end of July officially. We're rolling right into August, and I've gotten some exciting projects done this month. I've really ramped up a lot of the finished cars and completed some projects that have really drawn out for quite a while, so I'll be able to show them in this one today. So we got a lot of exciting models to look at today, so let's go ahead and get into this. So in terms of cars, I got a couple trash cars, and I have some hoppers. I have a locomotive to show you, and then I'll have some stuff on the layout. One of the cars I've been working on lately is this guy here, and I also have a second covered hopper, which I'll show you in just a second. Let's go ahead and look at this one first. This car here is NDYX 475156. It's a 4750. This is an Intermountain car, ex Frito-Lay. I actually got this from Spring Creek Model Trains at a train show last year. I didn't really know what to do with this car. I ended up putting it in storage over the winter, decided to wait. But I recently got inspired. I actually saw a real Frito-Lay car, and it was patched for NDYX, similar to this. And I did not get the exact car number, honestly wish I did, but I was able to mock up one here, just kind of from memory, basically. And honestly, that's how I model a lot of these cars. I see them, I'm not able to get the exact car numbers, but I have a very good photographic memory when it comes to weathering. I pay close attention mainly to the sides, and I look at how the rust builds up, what kind of rust spots, what kind of patchwork, that kind of thing. And I have a really good memory of being able to capture that kind of in my mind, and then I can transfer it then to my model, kind of interpret what I've seen. So that's how I've pretty much modeled this one, and it's covered, and I mean covered in rust spots. So the first big challenge with this car was to prep it with some grime. That gave me the proper tint into the plain gray color. Next I did the rough patchwork. This is all done with gray acrylic, and then I did 2 to 3 layers between different patchwork to try to make it look like it had been patched over at one point in time, but as time went on the patching started to fade. As you can look at the sides, you can see the lettering is actually starting to bleed back through, mainly on the lay and a part of the Frito, mainly the I and O at the end here. You can see it's starting to bleed back through that paint. So a common thing you see on these cars, you see a lot of that patchwork. It starts to deteriorate, it starts to fade away, and then you get to see the old co-op or the old owner lettering start to show through again. So once I did all that patching, then I did several layers of rust dots using acrylic paint. Then I followed behind with oil paint, did several layers of that. Then I did the main layer of oil paint, doing all the rust streaking, rust spots, really in one fell swoop. Once I did that, then I let all that dry for about a week, then really came back in and then did all the fine streaks, individually painted streaks down the side of the car. The best example of it is in this corner here, where you can see the individually hand-painted lines running down from these patches of rust at the top of the car. You also have these extensive rust patches like on this corner here, lots of rust on the top. The safety striping was applied, but you can see it's very badly peeled up and rusted back over. They did reapply some data here, but you can see the mountain of not safety stripes, rust dots, excuse me. You got big ones, little ones. The little ones are done with a marker, a Sharpie actually, a little dot Sharpie, and then I did all the other rust dots and everything else with the brush technique. The NDYX patches I just did today and then weathered over those. On the underbody of this car, it's got pretty much the same thing, and I'll go ahead and show that to you real quick. If we look at the individual little specks, those are all done with Sharpie. I got the kick-up lines done with powder, and then you got a lot of the extensive rust pitting starting at the top of the bay where the sheet metal is being eaten away. The patchwork looks really great. There's a lot of grime inside the underbays there, all done with oil, and then the trucks are just weathered typical way. You clean off the wheel rims, keep those clean. Lots of powder work on the trucks. Little bits of rust above the bearing. Very crucial for the proper look of these cars. A lot of this rust looks really nice over the patchwork too. That was just all layered on in various layers. You got the kick-up, of course, the end patching, all that's been done. The brake end of the car, lots of heavy dots of kick-up, lots of rust. And then on this side here, if we zoom out, you guys can see, well actually let's stay zoomed in for a second because I want to point all this out. You can see all those individual rust lines. All those are individually hand painted. This is quite a few hours of work, but this is what it takes to do a proper rust bucket like this. You gotta hand layer everything, and then you just have to be very patient. So you can see all that turned out really good, and then again you got the NDYX patch on this end, and all the rust on this side here as well. It all looks really good. I really like all that. There's a little bit more minor patching on this side, and of course all the rust and grime on the underbase as well. The second covered hopper is another one I recently saw. It's not the exact number, but it's close. This is a General Chemical 4750. These were painted up in the 90s, I believe, and then they started getting pretty beat up relatively quickly. A lot of these haul salt, a lot of chemicals like fertilizer, so they rust up really bad. This is going to be a salt car for my salt train. And with this one, I did a lot of grime tinting to the underbody, lots of heavy rust washes down the sides, and then I did all of the rust pitting, as you can see on the sides. Notice that this has the channel on the top, and oftentimes when you have a car with the channel, the rust doesn't just streak down from those points because that's covered up. It'll only streak down in these corners around that channel. It's almost like a rain channel. I'm not sure the exact reason that's there on a lot of these cars, but you can see how that rust is formed around that, both ends. On this one, I really beat up the General Chemical logo, and if we actually zoom in here, we can take a look at this rust here. You can see how I very carefully chipped away the logo, but then the blue logo is in really good shape. It's interesting. You can see all that rust dot, rust work, safety striping's been added. All that came out really good, all the individual little rust dots and rust pits. For the patch under the car, what I did here, hand painted all that, used Smokebox Graphics decals, and then blended the weathering in to make it look like that patching is a couple years old and it's weathered up. Grimed up the trucks, underbay's got lots of kick up, lots of rust dots. On the end here, heavy kick up, patchwork. Same thing on this end. You can see all that. Looks pretty good. Let me see, we need this side here. This side has a lot heavier rust working down the side there. Very, very heavy. It's starting to actually peel away the lettering. Lots of grime on the trucks there. A little bit of rust spot patchwork there. Again, the beat up General Chemical logo. You got the safety striping and lots of nice weathering. You can see all the fine individual streaks on the base. Lots and lots of rust on the top, all blended together. This got a final, a final coat of oil yesterday, so I'm going to let this set up for another day or two. But yep, both those 4750s are going to be going into service on the layout, hauling salt. I'm really proud of both of these. These next hoppers are both ADM. These are the Trinity 5161s. They're a very popular grain car, and you can still see many, many cars today. A lot of them still ADM too. But you see a lot more Lisa roads, I feel like, these days. A number of them have been repainted, of course. These are two that I got on eBay as a set of, actually, I think 6 cars. I got them for $100, and I managed to make quite a few out of these. I weathered all of them and got them all done, and then sold 2 off to a friend. I was actually able to make some profit off of that, which is pretty good too. But I was going to make these to sell, and then they turned out so good that I decided to keep them. That's always how it works, isn't it? Anyways, these are both ADM, like I said, but they're the older ADM molecule logo. The first one here is 52144. This one's got a little bit of side scrape damage on the sides, and if you look, you can see I have the safety tape added, of course, and the logos are kind of the centerpiece here that I want to talk about in a little bit of detail. These weather in many different ways. You see these peel off. Some of them are completely white, which is rare, but I've seen them. Some still have blue lettering, white logo. Some have blue logo, white lettering. It's pretty funny. There's 100 different ways, or more than that, than these things weather. So I chose a car from another picture, not the exact number, that had a peeled up logo like this. So the first thing I did was I sanded some of the logo off. Then I airbrush faded parts of it, including the lettering, cleaned up the surrounding areas, and then I went back in with oil, white oil paint, to add some dabs and streaks here and there to make it look like it's starting to lift and peel off. Then it was just weathered in with the rest of the car body. It was sealed in. Then I was able to go in and add all the little rust pits and dots. That's all oil paint work, followed by the Micron pen trick, which you just go in and add the little pits to the bays especially. Weathered up the trucks and wheels, of course, all the pitting on the sides. You got a lot of oil washes and build up on the top section there. Then all of the grain streaking is done with oil, not oil, but black powder to represent the grain streaking. Of course, it's running down the side here too on this one. On the top, you got the grain spillage. That's just done with ginger, dried ginger, and then I just streaked all that down the surrounding side there. On the opposite side of this car, you got a little bit more rust dot work. This was just replicated again with the acrylic dots first, some micron pen dots, then a little bit of oil runoff. Of course, this has a little bit more grain streaking on this side too. The ends look really nice, of course. They have all the kick up. You got to have the kick up on a hopper like this. The end cage is exposed, so you just go in there and spray all that grime in there, and it turns out pretty good. Now, the next one here has another slightly different logo. This one has a beginning stage of the ADM ghost lettering, where the white is starting to show through as the graphic peels and fades and basically fails. That was done with a lot of airbrush work to build up the white fade first. Then I followed behind with oils and streaked those down, and then added some other little streaks of things here and there to look like the peeling, and that worked pretty well. And then of course, same process, just weathered over all that with the oils, acrylic work of course, and then darkened the sills, weld lines, all that good stuff. I got all the nice little dots on the bays, kick up of course, nicely weathered trucks, lots of rust pitting on this guy here, the grain streaking and spillage, and of course the grain spillage on the top. And on the opposite side, slightly better looking logo. You can see this one's a little bit better preserved, but it's still fading pretty bad, as you can see. I really like that effect though. It takes a little time to build the paint up, but it's worth it in the end because you get a great result like this. This one here has a slightly different safety stripe pattern where it's actually mounted on the sill, while the other one has them up on the car body. A lot of denting, a lot of side scraping. It's very common for grain hoppers to get side swiped like this. So 5161s, the bigger 6351s, of course, those are notorious for getting these side scrapes. And of course, both these cars have the scraping down the side, the really fine scraping, if you can see. That's all done with coarse grit sandpaper. You just streak it down the side of the car during the final stages of weathering, and that creates that really nice effect. While we're still talking about covered hoppers, I do have a couple more in the works. These are both going to be CSX 4750s, obviously. I've already modified these for phosphate service. I've slightly modified this one and the one in the back with the late jacking pad for some late production 4750s. I added the placards both to the sides and ends. This one has been custom numbered and patched, CSXT 259618. This will be a more heavily weathered car. You can see I've already began building up the oil and grime work on the underbays and on the top there. And then this guy here is going to be a little bit cleaner, though it does have some slight dusting on the underbay there and on the sill and on the top as well. That's just primer weathering to get it started, but this one has the smaller script CSXT, and this one looks pretty nice so far. Again, there's the placards added. Those are just, I believe, Detail Associates parts. I just added the little placards there, painted them, paint matched them, and then again you got the newer late production jacking pads added. And these are both Intermountains. They're really hard to find, but I would like to maybe find one more of them and then make it a really heavy rust pitter, but that's only if I can find and source a car in time. So these will both get weathered up, finished up here, hopefully in the next coming weeks. Maybe by next video update I'll have these finished, but they're both looking pretty good so far. Moving on to some other finished projects, I got 8169 finished completely. This actually got a couple trial runs out on the layout, and it happens to be one of my best running SD40-2s currently. It's super smooth. The prior owner of this locomotive took really good care of it in terms of actually maintaining the engine. Cosmetically it was a little beat up, but it ran really well. So this one runs really smooth with the decoder. I can actually set it up with most other engines that I have programmed out on the layout right now, and it just runs flawlessly. It pulled a 89 car sulfur train, it pulled my Mrrx train, I tested it with a salt train, and I got some little bits of footage that I would like to try to edit together, hopefully to make a video of, but it just turned out really good. If you guys watched the build video, this is that engine that I posted recently. Some final touches I did to this before I move on to the next couple cars to show. I finally added the wind deflectors. That's on both sides of the cab. And also during running, some scuffing took place on the fuel tank. There was a partial derailment at some point because one of the people helping me operate the trains derailed this. So I got some sideswipe damage, a couple stanchions got popped out, but you know, that's just model railroading for you, stuff like that happens. So I had to actually repair one of the fuel fillers, and then partially repaint a section of the fuel tank and then weathered it. And as you can see, can't even tell it was damaged. Matter of fact, if I didn't say anything, you would have never known. I did also have to replace an air hose. This had a hard coupling and collided with an auto rack. Took the lead, or rather the rear air hose off. That was kind of annoying, but other than that, those were the only incidents. So this locomotive kind of got a rough start, but at least it got some good mileage on the layout, and it proved itself very worthy of pulling some freight. So, like I said, you guys can keep an eye out for some coming videos of this thing actually in operation. Everybody loves trash and scrap gondolas, especially the ones I do, and I've just recently completed a nice set of these cars to begin operations on the layout. This is an Mrrx high side. I believe this is a Greenville or Gunderson wood chip car converted for C&D service. These are made using I believe a Smoky Mountain model kit, I believe that's the correct name for it. These were actually produced by Josh Clark and another gentleman who actually made these and sold them. I think they still are doing runs of these cars, but the kits are pretty hard to get. They're a little pricey too. I actually got 5 of these kits, and these are the first 2 completed. The first one I'm showing you guys here is Mrrx 4273. Now, out of the box, the cars are for the Southern style wood chip cars. So the ones I'm modeling are a GPPX, or what is it, Georgia Pacific style wood chip car, which are slightly shorter. So I actually had to take the kit and shorten it by 3 panels. Yep, so I cut the whole thing in half, shrunk the car. I then added my own custom top cord, end plates, a number of separately applied details, brake rigging, new trucks, new couplers, all kinds of details. And then of course, once I got the build portion done, then I repaneled the entire car using the styrene 05-inch or 005-inch panel trick to model the bent bowed paneling. If we zoom in here real quick, you can see all the damaged paneling. You can see how it's all warped out really nicely. That was a big process on these cars, was repaneling them after the actual rebuild part. Once I got all that work done, spray painted them, I got custom decals made, custom data and everything made by Circus City Graphics. And Matt was able to make me a nice set of data for these cars. So I got that all done, and then the next challenge was finding a pair of trucks that actually fit these suitably. So I actually found that the Athearn Genesis, I think these are the 33 or 36-inch wheels, those fit relatively well without modification. I just had to find proper screws that actually would fit into these car bodies. So once I got all that done, then it was just a matter of doing the weathering. The weathering was obviously the hard part. First came the acrylic washes to darken the panels a little bit and fade it down. Then came the oil washes. Then came all of the oil streaking and painting. All the individual gouges and scrapes and streaks typically seen on these scrap cars was hand painted. All of it. Then I streaked some of it down in progressive layers. I added some patch repairs, little areas where they filled in holes on the car body with sheet metal, and then it's all rusted in. All this was then tagged up with a little bit of graffiti, safety striping, and then some mud splatter, garbage juice, kind of debris spill. This end here has a little bit of dark, grimy stuff, just kind of caked to the side. Lots of powder work to get all the rust right. The top of course is completely beat up and rusted away. On the ends there you can see you got all the kick-ups, that's all built up with oils and acrylic. A little bit of powder work. You got the custom done coupler lift bars, air hoses. On the opposite side here you can again see all that nice graffiti, all the nice weathering is all hand done. It's just a process of layering upon layering upon layering, and it takes many hours to do this. These are not cars I would ever sell, nor would I ever build these for anyone because they're just so labor intensive. If I were to sell one of these, it would easily be a $600 or $700 car. I'm not even joking. There's just so much work to do. And I still got 3 more of these to build, so it's going to have to be done slowly but surely. I would like to have more of these cars. These are the first 2 that really showed me what I need to do to actually build them. And in the end, it was a lot of work. It was a hell of an endurance, but it was worth it in the end because now I have some suitable prototypes so I can stick in my trash train. All the graffiti is done on this side. All the data is added, of course. The trucks are nicely weathered. There's a nice look at the basic underbody piping. You can see it's the basic rigging. It's what's supposed to be there. That's what matters. On the brake end of the car, you can see I added all of the streaking and all the damage to the end plate. The end plate is custom done. That's just styrene. That's like some sort of like sheet metal guard. And then I added all of the hand cut ladders, new brake wheels, everything like that was all added. Now talking about the loads are real C&D. That's just finely ground up, and it's mixed with a little bit of trash material from my scrap box. So it's various bits of photo etch, little bits of styrene, masking tape, plastic parts, sprue pieces, you name it. It's all in these loads to create the authentic looking CND loads. They scale down really well, especially once you run everything in a food processor. I use a magic bullet actually to grind all the CND up. It's pretty much glued down to a foam base, inserted inside the car, mounted on styrene supports internally, and the load just sits in there nice. I glue it all down on top. Some of these have netting, some of them don't. This one does not have netting, and neither does the 4144, which I'm going to show next. So the second car is done the same way as the first. It's just built up, cut in half, shrunk down, put a new top cord and a number of other details on. This one has all the custom artwork. This has a lot of nice fine graffiti, a lot of scribble. You don't see whole pieces of graffiti normally on these styles of cars. A lot of times it's just the scribble, and that's all done with Jelly Roll ink pens. Those are really good for being able to get in there and do the small tag work, as I like to call it. The sides are they're pretty much the same way. Once they're painted, I then do all the oil work to paint all the streaks and gouges representing the damage. Same thing on the ends, each corner, all four corners of this car. It's a long, hard process, but it needs to be done to accurately represent the rust in the cars. Once I do all that, then I can go back in, I'll do all the powder work, build all that up, and that usually comes out really nice. I do not seal the powder work in. A lot of people keep asking me that. I never do. When I handle the cars, I handle them in dedicated positions or places, just like in the center of the car, for example, where there's really no powder applied. Every other part of the car has a pretty liberal amount of powder applied, so that's how I get away with it. And overall, I'm really happy, like I said, with the build itself. I've been able to put these together, and it was definitely a lot of work, but it was worth it. So I'm now ready to look at actually building the last couple kits, and I'm hoping I can get them completed and put together, because I do really like these cars, but these are very labor intensive to build. Probably the most labor intensive. Honestly, these are just about as much work, honestly, as the air slide builds. So if we look at this side of the car, this side has some really unique mud splatter kind of caked on the side. A lot of this landfill juice, as I like to call it, it's just splattered all up on the side. The trucks are nicely weathered and covered in this dust as well. These are the custom stirrups. You can see they match up really nice with the Detail Associates ladders. Those are hand bent from brass wire and glued in place. Those are really nice and solid. They're just painted to match the car body. Again, there's a lot of mud splatter on the side. You can see all that nice graffiti, all the custom decals and data. All that's been very carefully done, and it's really a lot of work, but you can see it needs to be done to make these look right. Again, custom load. All that is done with real CND material and scrap material combined, glued to a foam core, and installed. So that's the two Mrrx cars. Like I said, we have to build some more of these, but the first two I'm very happy with, and they're ready to go in service out on the layout. So to wrap up the workbench section of this video, I do want to go ahead and show you guys some things to come. And in the next video, we're going to be discussing the air slide builds. These are finally completed and finished. I finally got proper trucks for them. I got all the detail parts made and installed. And the weathering is finally to my satisfaction. It took a heck of a lot of work to get these just right. And the project has pretty much dragged on for almost 2 years now, but they're finally done. I made 3 of these things using the Scale Trains Rivet Counter high capacity air slides. They're not the normal air slide like they have currently available. They're the rarer version air slide, which is a slightly higher capacity. They're really hard to find cars, and I was only able to manage 3 on eBay that I got when they first came out. So it was a couple years back when I bought them. I stored them. I ended up rebuilding them with complete top cords, new side ribs, all kinds of new details. We're going to be talking about these in the next video just because I ran out of time in this one, but you guys can stay tuned for this. I also have some sulfur cars I'm working on, I have some more hoppers, and I have some other projects that I'm going to be trying to save for some how-to videos. One of the ones I'll go ahead and sneak in now is this. What is this, you might ask? Well, I missed out buying one of these the first time around, but I got me a war bonnet, and we're going to be actually weathering this. And yes, I know what you're thinking, just what the world needs, a 538th video of a war bonnet being weathered. Well, what I want to talk about with this is something that I feel like most guys miss when they start weathering a locomotive like this. A lot of people, when they get a pre-weathered locomotive, they just throw grime on it and say that it's now weathered. These locomotives are nice because they do help with a lot of the heavier like paint peeling and stuff like this. However, there's a lot more you can do to these to make them look nice and further enhance the factory weathering before actually weathering them. So I feel like there's a little bit more that can be discussed. So I'm going to save this guy for a weathering video, so you guys can stay tuned for that. I did want to try to jump ahead and start filming it, but I just got too many projects I'm trying to film to right now. I have a layout update I'm working on. I have car build I'm working on. I have some hopper videos planned. I got a tank car weathering video. So I got a lot of stuff. So this one's going to have to get put in the back burner for a second, but it is in the pipeline, so I wanted to show you guys that. Now, in terms of other projects to come off the tripod here, I do also have a couple more things I recently got. I did get a gondola. Maybe we'll do a gondola video. A bunch more sulfur cars, some hoppers up there. So we won't be running out of projects, believe me. We got all kinds of stuff to do. All this over here is going to be going out to the layout. Now, also in part of the layout before we finish up here, I did finally get a proper AC unit, and this is one I bought. And unfortunately, I did just get it, and it came damaged. However, it's just the grate work, and being that it's just a cosmetic bend, what happened is the box got kinked. As you can see, this thing shifted in the box, punched into the side. So what I'm going to have to do is take this thing out of the box and check to make sure that everything's in working order first. Otherwise, I'm going to return it. It cost me about $600, so that's kind of a big no-no. But nevertheless, I did finally get the AC unit I needed. It's a large unit, so this is going to be fit inside my garage. And this is actually a heater unit as well, so it's a dual AC/heater. So this should hopefully solve our temperature issues out in the garage. That being said, talking about the garage, let's go ahead and move out there real quick. So now onto the layout. You can see I got some cars being staged in the yard right now. I've been running the sulfur train, which has been running really great. I hope to have some videos of this thing actually operating here pretty soon. Got it up to a little over 90 cars last weekend. And it ran flawlessly around the layout, no derailments, no issues there, so I'm very, very happy with that. And I was able to pull it with 2 EMDs, which was great. I got some trash cars over here on the layout. I got my auto train sitting in the storage yard. Some epic cars are sitting out there. So just putting together various trains, test running a lot of cars. The Mrrx ran fine. I had no issues there other than some coupling issues with certain cars. Mainly Intermountain Mrrx. I know other people have had issues with Intermountain Mrrx, so these are the cars I'm going to have to do some work to get to run properly on the layout. Every other car, trash cars, custom built cars, tank cars, all run exceptionally well. These are all the locomotives I got decoders in so far. A nice colorful set of locomotive lease units. A CSX 8888 is actually out here, and I didn't think I'd be running this one, but as it turns out I forgot I had a decoder in it. And the other day when we were running trains with my friends, I pulled this one out, test ran it, and it did pretty good. It pulled my Autorack train with 2 other HLCX units, and it did phenomenal. Super smooth running. All of these are my best running engines so far. Even the 3140, I was really having some issues with this at first. Once I ran this for a couple hours, ran flawlessly, nice and smooth, no truck binding issues like I was having before. Couldn't ask for better running engines. These are just really the cream of the crop. So I got a nice selection of diesels out here ready to go on the layout. I actually got to send one of these throttles back because one of these need to go back. I actually ran 2 throttles so we could run multiple trains, multiple locomotives. So that's definitely the way I want to run out here. So I need to get another DT500 for the layout. This was a 400 we were testing out, and it worked fine. We programmed quite a few locomotives at the same time, so we were, programmed 3 or 4 in a row. Also had my BNSF-9 out here, the Scale Trains one. That ran really well, although it was having some overspeed issues, but that's a whole other story there. Okay, so changes to the layout. Let's talk about this. I told you guys in the last video I'm adjusting and fixing some track issues. Biggest issues that I'm having out here is that track height is pretty wonky. So I've been having to go out here, excuse me, and adjust some of this stuff. So one thing I did was I relayed in some brand new switches. These are brand new Pico turnouts, so these are the correct switches now. So I have the proper turnouts for the yard lead. I also have to address this height issue here, this hump. So I've been fixing the mainline track here, first main, and I also got to fix the second main because of the height issue. Because as you can see, the foam has lifted or the plywood has expanded and contracted over the time it's been out here. So I got to fix that little hump there, and I also got to fix this hump down here on the main track. You can see I've already started to adjust it on the yard track. There's just one more hump in this section here that I got to fix, but as you look at this, you can actually see that hump on the main line. That's a no-no. That's got to get fixed. Small issues like that, they can cause some issues as I've experienced, so I want to be able to correct as much of this as possible. As for the yard lead itself, I've obviously put the switch lead in. I got to order some more track at some point, but I've already laid in the new road bed. This is the Rapido siding, or what is it, branch line road bed. So this is going to be low profile. As you can see, compare that with the main line height, or rather the first yard height. And then the next track will be at ground level, so that'll be even lower to the ground, and then all this will be a gravel alley out here. So we got to do a lot more track laying and a lot more adjusting. I am going to have to move the crossover once again. I know that's annoying. I've had to redo this so many times now. At this point, I'm just going to replace all this track in this section and say screw it, and at least then I can go in here and properly adjust all the height issue, fix the road bed, and be able to just correct that at least. So there's some positives here, but I'm going to move the switches back over to here where they need to be, because all this is actually relatively close to the C&I yard, and again, I missed that the first time I installed this, so I'm going to have to adjust this. This has all been corrected and straightened out. This is brand new track, all new switch here, all new turnout lead here, all glued in place, leading into the finished section of the layout. And this is what I've been working on, where I've cut out the last video. I actually just finished filming the final clip yesterday, but I installed some ties in my hill section. All the track has been ballasted and cleaned. All the yard leads and everything have been prepped. I still got to wire up the telephone poles and add some little shrubs, little details like that along the scene here. All the telephone poles are installed and wired up. I got some little tie piles and things like that that are waiting to get some shrub details. Installed switch stands, for example, things like that. Some more little spots of ballast I got to correct, but you can see I laid in some rail detail, tie detail, all kinds of weeds in the track area. This whole area has just come out super nice. As you can see, this little gravel pile, this little gravel way, and this is going to be like a hilly backdrop, just a natural like little hill section with some trees and shrubs. So it's going to look a lot like this over here with the tall trees, shrubs and everything like that. I have to get some Scenic Express tree material to be able to do this because I don't have any right now. So I'm going to have to order that, and once I do that, then I'll be able to fill this in properly, blend all this in. I'll be able to add some more ties, be able to add some rail details, and just a lot of junk lying along the track, because this is a maintenance away access alley. So there's a lot of ties, there's a lot of crap like laying along the track, so I'm going to have to get some more resin cast tie piles, put them alongside here, lots of debris, maybe some scrap tires and things, and then of course all this will get expanded over to the next section, over through here. And then eventually it'll all turn into a large alley, but that'll all be for later. So a lot of work to do still, but it's a major bit of progress, and I was able to get the majority of this done before my first real operating session out here. So it turned out to be really well. We were able to use these yard tracks to store and operate, do some switching, so that was a lot of fun. All the curves down here, as tight as they are, actually did really well. I didn't have any derailments on the switches. So they all turned out actually pretty well. So I'm fairly happy with things, because I did have my concerns, especially with running larger cars like Mrrx, and they honestly ran really well out here. So other than some other little details, we're just about done in this scene. I mean, no scene's technically done. There's always something else you can add, but I'm just going to keep chipping away at this, and this is just part of the fun of it. You know, none of these scenes are technically complete. I can always go back and add some more stuff. Like over here, for example, I can add more bushes, I can add more shrubs and trees. And all that just really comes in time. You know, when I feel like doing some trees and some bushes, I'll cook some more up and install them on the layout. It's just how it goes. It's just part of the fun. Whenever you feel motivated to do a certain project, you work on that project, fix some little areas. When I feel like working on ballast, I just come out here and fix some ballast areas. And when I feel like planting static grass, I come and work in some areas and plant static grass. So I'm really in the fun part of building this right now. I mean, the tedious part for sure is having to address all this track work, but this is something you have to do in the long run. If you don't correct these kinds of issues, they only grow further and further until eventually you have a problem. And you can imagine what kind of a hassle this would be if all this had been ballasted up like I had originally planned to, left all the issues there, and then when I got to operating, realized that the switches were crap, realized that I had these humps on the track where trains were derailing, and then I would have been like, uh-oh. So then I would have had to go back and rip up scenery. I would have had to rip up ballast and then redo all of that, not to mention the cost of having to buy new ballast and new material. it's very expensive right now, and so you think about, I'd rather pay to replace the track and do all this now than wait later on when all of this is done to have to go and rip all the track and the scenery out and pay more to do it. So I'm just going to do it now while I'm still working on track work and hopefully be able to tie this up. But one little step at a time. It's just all part of it. But I want to thank you guys for watching all this and bearing with me here. I have some more exciting videos coming. I got lots of new cars in as well that we got to start working on. I got all kinds of videos planned, locomotive builds, car builds, gondola builds, auto wreck weathering, boxcar weathering, hopper weathering, you name it. I got so much I have planned. So I got to just try to work at my pace, just try to get as much as I can done without getting burned out. So I got a lot of videos coming down the pipeline, so you guys can subscribe here on YouTube to stay tuned for all those. Like I said, I got the layout, proper layout video coming on this module section that I finished. And then I'll have some more run videos coming soon, some more updates on rolling stock as it comes out. So we'll just keep chugging along here and keep making progress. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more content in the future. I'll see you the next time. Take care.